have some fun. I'll get in gear. Nissan Skyline GTS-t. The car's mostly stock, except for an HKS pod filter, HKS Hypermax coilovers, which kind of put on because the suspension was blown out and did not take corners very well. As in, I was leaning left, right every time you took a corner. The only other thing that's not stock on this car, besides the headlights, is the Grant steering wheel put in here by the previous owner. Now, this car is just loads of fun. It's weird and proper. It rides perfectly. It was a little awkward at first learning how to drive, considering I haven't driven a stick since the States, and you know, being on the opposite side of the car, I thought it was going to be hard to learn how to drive a stick with my left hand. Now, it took me all of maybe 2 or 3 seconds to get used to the change, to be honest. It was honestly really easy to pick up. And this car accelerates fairly quickly here. I'm gonna do a little quick little acceleration here. Car gets up to speed very quickly. That was only through 2 different gears. Handles amazingly, just beautifully. I mean, it doesn't even have fancy tires on it, stock rims, handles like a champ, and I can do it one-handed, corners, left, right, doing 70 kilometers, which is like 30, 40 miles an hour. You know, which is kind of the speed limit around here. I'm only supposed to be doing 50, but everybody knows it's more fun when you're going fast. Coming up on a scooter up here. I have to pass them after this corner. It's a little sketchy trying to go around corners, especially when you can't see around them. Shall pass them at some point, then I can see what's coming around the bend. The funny thing about Japan is that the scooter's only limited to a certain kilometers now. The smallest engine scooter can only do 20 kilometers. This one obviously has a slightly larger engine, as it's doing 30 kilometers an hour. Here we go for the pass. Smooth. Nice and easy. gotta say, I love the sound of that blow-off valve, even though it's a recirc. Ugh. Another thing about those coilovers, they're quite a bit stiffer than stock suspension, but not the stiffest out there. You can hear everything rattle in the car every time you hit a bump. It's actually rattled apart the air purifier in the back that apparently came stock with this car, but does not work. Another great feature about this car is that you don't actually have to brake around the corners. You just drop down a gear. These gears were made so perfectly for this car and for these hills and corners. It's just, beautiful car, beautiful scenery. Not so beautiful bumps in the road. There's another one right there. Roads aren't the best in the world, but still fun to drive nonetheless. So far, from what I understand from the previous owner, is that this is original engine, original transmission, original mileage, so it's got about 131,000 kilometers on it, which puts it at around 80,000 miles on it. So even for a car that's 24 years old, still got tons of life left in it. Tons of life. Another great feature about this car is that it actually tells you what your boost pressure is at inside the dials. On the GTR, it would all be right here on the dash. You'd have to look over and check what your boost pressure is, because on the right next to the speedometer, instead of measuring boost, it measures the front wheel traction of the car. Now, I don't have to worry about that because the GTS-t only comes rear wheel drive. God, love this drive. Love taking these roads. This car is an amazing car to just daily drive everywhere you go. It handles beautifully, gets decent miles per gallon or kilometers per liter, however you take it in whichever part of the world you're in. It gets around 20 to 30 miles to the gallon, which is actually fairly decent that it's a inline 6 turbo to engine, especially being under the high performance category of car, or sorry, sports performance category of car. The exhaust is decently loud for a stock vehicle, but then again, I've been told that someone has possibly taken the innards out of the cat. So essentially it's just like having just a resonator with no cat on the car, but it's still there for JCI purposes. And this car, like, as much as people knock the RB20 engine, it's a great engine, just works so well with the car. Now, I've never had the chance to drive an RB25 or an RB26, but I have driven with them, as we have a Skyline group out here in Japan, obviously. My car, stock as it is, keeps up with these 300 to 500 horsepower all-wheel drive monsters that these guys are driving. Now, I don't necessarily keep up the entire time when it gets towards the top end, but low end I keep up just as well. Now, the reason being is that the RB20 is a smaller engine, it has shorter rods, so it can get through the rev range faster. The stock turbo, which is ceramic, which I haven't replaced yet, has a lower boost point. It comes into boost in the lower range of RPMs to help get through, up into the higher area, but once it gets to the higher rev range, you kind of lose that top end power, but to me, it's perfect. Another great thing about the RB20, from what I have found out through many, many hours of reading on the internet and research, is that it is actually, out of all three of the engines, the strongest. Now, I don't mean strongest as in power-wise, but strongest as in it has the least chance of blowing its block. The block is stronger than the RB25 and the RB26 is because, unlike those motors, it wasn't made of lighter materials to save on weight. It was actually, from what I understand, a cast iron block. It has a stronger bottom end, so it's less likely to blow when you're revving all the way up into the 9,000 RPM range, which, yes, I have done. Not many times, but enough to know that it gets up there, and it gets fun. Not to mention, this car being only rear-wheel drive, the rear end does like to break loose, and when it breaks loose, it actually surprisingly keeps itself under control. Very tame, actually. Another fun thing about the Skyline series of cars, I don't know all of them that have it, but the GTS-t Type M and the regular GTS-t came with HiCas, which is a very fun little system that everybody likes to block off or get rid of, because in the chance of failure, it does like to turn your rear wheels by themselves. But I got fortunate enough and lucky enough to have a car that has functioning rear HiCas, so in cutting through these corners, it makes it just that much easier. And it's a very, very weird feeling when it kicks in, because you can actually feel the rear end turn. I could go on and on about this car all day. Facts, everything. But as you can see, this car is not the cleanest, not the nicest, not the most well put together, but it is my car, and I love it for that. And with that, I will give you this one final sound of the car. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed it.